So you can see I've been having a lot of fun for the last hour or two. Put on some classical music and just get immersed in it, get into a zone, the scenery zone I call it. And I find that once, after about the first hour, you really start to get into it and you can just gobble up. I mean, I've gobbled up 4 or 5 hours at a time sometimes, well, with breaks in between, but just really getting into it, not being away from it, but trying to just stay connected and putting the work in like in layers, right? So you see here, there's 4 or 5 layers of matte medium, sprinkle, vacuum, a little bit darker, lighter, whatever. Just play around until you find a method that you like. Try to keep the dark in around the crevices and corners. Now what I'll probably do here is, at some point, is I'll work a little bit up the wall where you see the stains already. I'll try to stay within those stains as if the moss is creeping up, because it's going to be sort of a shady alleyway going in here. So who knows what story this is going to tell? Like I could have a, you know, an old rotting, sorry to say it, convertible Cadillac, an old '59 Eldorado, you know, with the tarp, the blue tarp on it, you know, flat tire, missing hubcaps, you know, whatever, right? A truck. I mean, you know, that's the fun of focusing in to the postage stamp scene, I call it, within the greater whole of the signature scene or diorama within your layout. It's just so much fun. And if you like to run your train slow, it all makes sense. So this is that tall field grass by Woodland Scenics. Number FG173, model tall grasses. Yeah, that's right. You pull small strands, not individual, but clumps of, 6 to a dozen or so. Cut them at a certain length. I try to keep it random, and then put a dab of matte medium in, and then just pinch them in. This took me about, I don't know, I plugged in for about an hour or two, right? It takes a bit of work, but you don't need to do a lot of it. And I find too that if it's random, it looks more realistic. But what I try to do is around the edges, I try to trim it down. Like, remember I talked about that principle of stacking scenery, like going from low to high, like comparatively speaking, in any scene, like whether it's trees, grass, buildings, whatever. It'll really lend itself to a powerful composition when you build up small moss here, smaller field grass. There's grass that I laid in here before, a little bit higher, and then this here I put in. And then I come in and I actually trim the foreground down a little bit. It just helps to pull the eye in gently and smoothly and transition into that composition that you're attempting to achieve. There's subtle things that you do that you don't really notice, but in the overall picture and flow of the scene, that's what makes the difference between one scene over another, are those little tiny little tweaks that you do. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to move this building out of the way. That's another reason why I love making everything portable, because I can deal with everything so easily. And then I'm going to airbrush this with some very thin green. I want to shift this synthetic green. You can build stock with Woodland Scenic, that's fine. If you don't want to paint your scenery, you don't have to. But as you know by now, I paint everything. Whether, like, not just opaque blockouts of color, but super thin. Like, I'll probably even thin this more. This is, I'd say 85 to 90% IPA with 5 to 10% pigment per volume. Like, so whenever I use those terms, it's per volume of whatever jar I use. When I say 80% IPA, 20% pigment, I just mean the color straight from the bottle, 20%, and then 80% IPA. Or actually, I probably overestimate the pigment when I say it. It's usually way less. Like, you'll know when you do it for a while if it covers too much, like too fast, then back off, because you want to build it up, because you want to be able to pull away and then say, okay, that's okay, because it's minimalistic, right? So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to paint a lot of this green, and then what I want to try to achieve here are those sort of wheat tops, that you see like in the summertime. It just has a nice touch. So I'm going to paint this out a little bit, just thin enough so that you don't lose this variation of greens in here, but you're actually just changing the color tone, okay? Okay, so notice how I'm getting in right close. I'm almost touching the airbrush, like I'm stabbing it right into the grass, because I want to get to the base of the roots of the grass to introduce some shadow, right? So I'm artificially introducing shadow, and then I'll come in with the lighter green which is much thinner than this. This is a little bit heavier, but trust me, this is not much pigment in here. There's maybe 10%. And than IPA. But you notice if you stay longer, like see, and then less paint, you can build up. Watch. See this here? Let me just watch. Like that's how thin it is, right? See? But then watch this. Same paint, but then I just tiny amount, right? And I can make it look opaque. See? So it doesn't, like too much pigment's a waste. That's why an airbrush is your friend, right? You can control pigment and IPA once you practice and get used to it. And there's plenty in the cup, right? And then of course when I want to blow it out with a bit of IPA, it's so easy to clean, okay?